Hi, Alissa.
Hi.
I just want to thank you so much for what you shared with us. You are so skilled at your craft. Don't you guys think that she was awesome today? Just thank you so much. Yeah. I love the gratitude meditation. I just, again, like just what a beautiful way to end an evening. Okay, I have some questions for you. So tell us a little bit about what young Alissa was like, little girl Alissa.
I was actually really shy. And in some ways I still am. I was a pretty shy kid. And I don't know if it was like my asking or my parents saw this in me and like gave me a pushing, but they put me in beauty pageants. So young Alissa was in these like pageant gowns with this, my mom would do my hair and it was like the 80s, right? So it was like the big curly hair, like the pictures are, that was really helpful because it helped me get out of my shell a lot and get over like the fear of talking to people and public speaking and things like that. So I so appreciate that phase of my life when I was doing that. And then I got way out of my shell, went on to be like a cheerleader, had lots of fun in high school.
Tell us about high school. Yeah, what sports were you into?
Just cheerleading. Okay. I wouldn't consider myself super athletic. My brother got all those genes. He was an amazing basketball player. I got the height. He's short, right? And he always gets so mad. He's like, I got all the athletic genes, but not the height. But he was an amazing basketball player. I did cheerleading because it was fun and my friends did it. But honestly, I really wasn't all that athletic. I worked a lot. My parents instilled in me a work ethic at a young age. My dad had his own business, so that's kind of where like my entrepreneurial spirit comes from. And he would take us to work with him all summer long, on the weekends. I wouldn't say we loved it, but I'm so grateful now because he really instilled amazing work ethic in us, and we just learned to work and hustle at a young age.
Yes.
And so I worked a lot. I've always enjoyed working. It's just
part of who you are.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
I actually have to work at not working, if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense. When did you take your very first yoga class? Do you remember?
I don't know that I remember the very, very first, like I can't quite place the first one, but I know the progression of it. My best friend started doing yoga when we were probably in college. I went away to school in Pennsylvania and she was back here in Columbus, but she got into yoga in college. And so when I came back to Columbus after college, she just kept nagging me. And I was like, no, I'm gonna suck. I'm not flexible. I'm not very athletic. Like, I don't wanna go do that. Like, I don't know anything about it. And God bless her. She has changed my life because she just kept saying, please come, please come, wow. Please come. It'll be good for you. And I was at a time in my life where like, I could just feel like I needed something. Yes. I had just had my first baby. I ate a lot of Cold Stone when I was pregnant with my first baby, so I had some extra weight to lose, and like, probably dealing with the hormones, which I didn't even really understand at the time from postpartum. So I felt like I needed something. And so one day I finally said yes and ended up going, and I don't know that I necessarily liked the first class, but I felt good, yes. Like I remember I felt good. So I kept going and I made a commitment to be consistent with it. And then over time, I felt really good. Like I felt the best I ever felt in my body. Wow. So it ended up being such a pivotal point in my life because she just wouldn't stop saying, wow. You need to go to yoga. You need to go to yoga.
Oh my goodness. It's so powerful. What the power of an invitation, mm-hmm. Just the power of an invitation. That's just going to sit with me for a while, actually.
Yeah, right? You never know how that's going to turn out for somebody.
It changed your whole life.
It did. And at the time, you have no clue. Like, I'm just going to my first yoga class. so what, right? So what?
So here you are.
Yeah.
You have 8 locations later. And I want to ask about that entrepreneurial spirit. Like, you've been featured in many Columbus magazines about how you actually started GoYoga with a refund check.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, definitely. And I like to share that story only because I think some people feel like in order to start something you're passionate about, like you have to have all of these resources. And you know, it kind of depends on what you're going into, but I share my story because I just want to say, like, that's not the case. Like, you can start super duper small and just sort of test an idea out. And that's what I was committed to. You know, we just had a few $1,000s in savings. We were a young family, young kids, did not have a lot of extra. But I just had this vision one day, like yoga in Columbus was very, very different 10 years ago when I started this. The options were very limited and it just wasn't super accessible. The price point was much higher. We've brought it down over the years. There weren't a lot of offerings. And even the places that had yoga, they taught it in a way that if you didn't already know what you were doing, it was really hard to follow along.
Right.
And so I just thought, like, this can be done better. Like, we can make this available to more people if we really do it in a way that's more accessible. And I just had this vision actually at the end of a yoga class one day where it's like, I could just see it in my mind. And so I went home and told my husband at the time about it. And he was like, all right, let's do it. I'm like, okay, well, we have this like few $1,000s that we just got. Thank you from the IRS. So I said, I don't want to take out debt because I just don't, if it doesn't work, I don't want to owe people things.
Right.
We didn't go lease spaces, big spaces for 5 years. I literally rented studio space from dance studios, martial arts studios by the hour.
Wow.
So if it didn't work, it was no big deal. We could bow out at any time. And that's how we started. It was not fancy, it was not glamorous, and we just built it like step by step. And as it got some traction, that's when we started to branch out and have our own studios. But even that, I mean, 8 sounds like a lot, but we've done it at a very like steady, consistent pace where it's just like one a year. I mean, there were some years where there were 2, but right. On average, I mean, we've been around 10 years. We have 8 studios. It's been less than 1 a year, so.
Talk to me about some of the, challenges. It's not always like roses and unicorns and rainbows and.
No, it's not. It's not. And I think that's why, like, if you want to have a business, you've got to really be passionate about either what you're doing, or you also need to be passionate about the business of what you're doing. And I think that's where, like in my industry, the wellness industry, a lot of people run into trouble because they're really passionate about the fitness that they're offering, or the yoga or the massage. I mean, I have worked with a lot of massage therapists over the years too. And so they go start their own business, but what they don't realize is, like, you've got to have some passion or at least respect for the business side of things to make it work. And that business side of things is what trips a lot of people up because they're like, we don't want to deal with this. Well, that's the cost of having your own business. Right. You have to deal with the business side of things. So you have to learn to deal with it, quite frankly, And I've been blessed to have a lot of great mentors and people in my life around me, including, my parents, and my grandparents were entrepreneurs as well, and some great friends I've met through the years who are either mentors or at least those people who, like, I can vent to,
Yes.
Like, you need that outlet too, because you can't really do it to your team all of the time. They don't need to hear all of the struggles behind the scenes, but you need to have those people that you can vent to. You need some mentors to coach you on the areas you're not strong at, because nobody's strong at everything, right? We're all going to have those pieces and parts that don't really play to our strengths that we need to at least learn to be decent at, or find somebody who can help us, that is. But yeah, there's definitely challenges. I think you have it in every business. It's not going to be perfect. This past year definitely was a big curveball for many types of businesses, ours included. And so that really tested us. And but you can either choose to wallow in your sorrows, or you can choose to rise up to the challenge and get stronger, and that's the decision we made. We're like, this stinks. So much of it is beyond our control, but we're going to get better through this. It hasn't been without stumbles and falls, but what else are you going to do,
You're going to keep going.
I'm not throwing in the towel.
Nope, don't you dare. Okay, so why GoYoga? Can you help explain the GoYoga?
The name?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's a really good question. That one doesn't get asked very much. My husband and I, we're divorced now, but at the time when I came up with the idea, this is interesting too. A lot of times with business, your initial idea isn't what actually ends up being the business. And then what we have now was actually not the initial idea. The initial idea was to take, this was before co-working actually was a big thing. It was in my mind, there are probably all these places that have this wide open empty space. Why don't we set up this system where we rent the space by the hour when it's not being used, and we teach yoga classes there, and we do them all over the city. And that was the initial idea. So it was kind of like that yoga on the go concept.
Yes.
And so my ex-husband ended up coming up with the name GoYoga. And it was like simple and
catchy.
Kind of. I mean, at the time I was like, like, I don't know if I like it. But the other thing that we really wanted to make sure was that it was like, it felt like gender neutral, because yoga, at least in our country, is geared a lot toward women. And some of the names of yoga studios, they're just like fancy and almost more feminine. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to make sure like men felt really comfortable coming into our classes and our spaces too. So how can we just have something that's pretty generic, that doesn't really turn anybody off because it's a different name? And so that fit the bill. But the concept evolved just as we started doing it. And I think that happens.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay, so does anybody here have any questions for Alissa? Oh no! Oh no! Ange, do you have a question?
Do you know what you want to do? Not sure. You still have a lot of time. Yeah. Cool.
So, okay, one of my questions actually was, when you were renting out the spaces, how did you get people's attention to come to those spaces? Like, how are you promoting your business?
So, some things are like just right place, right time in life. And when we were starting out, Groupon and Living Social were like huge, right?
Groupon was big. I used to use it all the time.
It was huge, yeah. Like it was right time, right place. Like, and it wasn't just those. Like there were several other companies too that were doing it. And so that's not exactly free marketing, meaning like there is a cost to do that because you don't get in like the full amount of revenue, right? But you don't have to pay anything up front. And when you're running on a shoestring budget, something like that is great. And at the time, so many people were reading those Groupon and Living Social emails that, I remember the first deal we sent out, we got like over 1,000 responses, and we were like, holy cow, like we were not prepared. Wow. And we had to sit like at our normal jobs, like secretly responding to the emails and setting up all of the Groupons behind the scene because it was so overwhelming. And again, like that at that time, that was just perfect for us. And that got the word out really quickly. And it's funny, we still have clients today, 10 years later, who came in on those like initial Groupons and Living Socials. So it was great to have that because we didn't have to shell out a ton of money for marketing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm sure it's different now.
It is. It's just a noisier world too. It's amazing in a decade how much things have changed in terms of that. Because even social media now, you can market yourself organically on social media, but the reach is so small. They say like only 2% of even your followers see your posts, at least from the business side of things. And so you almost have to pay for things like Facebook ads, Instagram ads, maybe even Google AdWords, like just to be seen. And back then, like, you didn't have to. So it's just, it's different. And, you know, at the same time, it is also easier to get yourself out there because there are so many social media channels and things like that. It's just a noisy world to really stand out in.
Yes, it is. So we got to experience the experience of what it would be like in studio. So could you share with us, maybe a beginner or somebody just walking in, what kind of an experience can they expect? What kind of atmosphere do you provide?
One of the big things for us, like I mentioned earlier, is a place that is accessible, and a component of that is welcoming. Like, if there's one thing I try to train my staff on and reiterate to them, is to make everybody, when they come through the door, feel seen and valued. So in my experience, and I've heard some other people say this, sometimes when you go to, and this is probably not just limited to yoga studios, but when you go to a new place to work out or do some sort of fitness, especially in a smaller boutique type fitness center or studio setting, it might feel cliquey. You know, you might feel like everybody else knows each other and you're kind of the odd person out walking in. You don't really know what to expect. You don't know anybody there. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. That's how a lot of people feel about yoga. They're really hesitant. Like, they're almost a little afraid to take that first step and come to a class. So what I tell my team is, if they have had the courage to come in, like, we need to make them feel like they're at home. Just like you would when you have a visitor come to your house for the first time. You know, show them around, like, make sure they know, like, where to put their things and what to expect, and here's where the bathrooms are, and here's where you face, like, just all of those things that might be running through their heads. We just try to, like, give it to them all up front to make them feel at ease. So that's, like, the biggest thing, is just that sense of welcoming. And then secondly, how we instruct is just, we try to be very simple with our words, and straightforward in how we deliver it, so that people that haven't done anything like this before can follow along. We actually usually don't do a lot of demoing, for the reason being, I don't want somebody to look at my body and try to model what I'm doing, because this is my body and that's their body, and it's not going to look the same in their body. And I think that's one of the detrimental things about demoing, is just a little bit of comparison comes in, and there can be that frustration of, like, you know, and some of our yoga teachers, they have amazing practices. Like, they're just naturally, like, really flexible, and they can do things like, after 15 years of yoga, I'll never be able to do, because my body's not built like that. And so I don't want a student looking at one of those types of teachers and being like, I suck at yoga because I can't do it like that, because it's not about that. It's not about that at all. There's actually no end game. That's why we call it a practice. Wow. It's just, you just show up, you meet yourself where you're at every day, you mindfully move your body, you breathe, and whatever you do is going to be good for you. Like, it doesn't have to be about achieving a certain place in a posture. And, you know, people see things on social media, and even yoga's in a lot of, like, TV ads now. Like, I catch it all the time, but they see people doing these maybe more complex postures or whatever. Truth is, most of us are never going to look like that. It's not about that. And so I think that's where, like, yoga gets a bad name, and we hear people say all the time, like, I'm not flexible enough. And it's like, the point is, you come to yoga to improve things like flexibility, right, as well as strength and balance and mindfulness. I mean, you name it. You can really work on so many things inside of a yoga class, and you don't have to show up with anything other than your body. Right. Like, that's it. You don't need any, there's no prerequisites.
That's beautiful. I didn't intend to cry today. I did actually during the gratitude meditation, but I'm always telling our clients, I always say, listen, your body looks better on you than it does on anybody else. It fits better on you than it does on anybody else. And you belong to you. And just the even checking in, that was so beautiful. But I love the whole open-minded, open-handed, open-hearted. Oh my goodness. Tell us where we can find you and some of your studios.
So we have 8 locations across the city. Pretty much wherever you live in like Greater Columbus, you can find us within 10 or 15 minutes. I don't want to say everywhere because I know some people live kind of outside of the Greater Columbus area. But the great thing is we're also now, thanks to COVID, it really pushed us to get stuff online, which we had talked about for a while. It just always got put on the back burner. And so you can take a live stream class from anywhere. And those classes are just on our normal schedule from our website, GoYogaUSA.com. And then we also have a library of pre-recorded classes too. So if you can't catch a live stream, you can watch classes back. And for some people, that's great because they feel more comfortable starting at home and just getting familiar with things before they maybe venture out into a studio or gym to take yoga. So yeah, if you can't come into a studio, online, live stream, or pre-recorded. But 8 locations, and our new clients get 2 weeks of unlimited classes for $35, which I love that because I encourage people to go try a variety of classes because that'll help you figure out what styles feel right for you and your goals, because we all have different goals when it comes to what we're looking for from our wellness practices. But also teachers. Every teacher is a little bit different. You know, some teachers you might vibe with, or they might be like, you know, you're kind of tribe.
A good fit. That's right.
Yeah, and then other teachers you're like, yeah, not so much. Like you're just not, you know, not my thing. And we have 60 teachers, so it's like go try as many as you can and you know, see what fits best. Yes. And then once you find what fits, the key really to anything, which you all know too from the work you do, is you've got to be consistent.
Yes.
If you are not consistent, you cannot get like all of the benefits from this. And so that's an important piece of it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of you.